Hello, everybody. I'm Michelangelo Signorile, and this is another great collaboration with Lincoln Square. Of course, I have my Substack, the Signorelli Report, and I'm a host on SiriusXM Progress. And it's always great to collaborate with the folks here on Lincoln Square. And I'm so glad to have with me today Heather Parton, who you all know, many of you, as Digby, her great site, digbysblog.net, which she has been doing for many years. And of course, she's a contributor to Salon.com, always incisive and great reporting and analysis. Hello, Heather. What a week.
What a week. Good morning. Hello to you too.
So we saw this week Trump, again, the frustration that he has over Iran that just keeps bubbling over because they keep, winning. I mean, they keep on getting the better of him. They have the Strait of Hormuz, and it's causing havoc in the economy. And he has gone in so many different directions. We know now that munitions are low, so he held back on attacking them militarily. He's now talking about uh, economic sanctions, which I think we've done for like decades. And he's in this quagmire, and so he decided to attack South Korea, and uh, angry with them for not joining his war in Iran. And part of his anger at them and his action against them was to cozy up to North Korea, announcing that he and Kim Jong Un are great friends, and we would be ending these joint military operations with South Korea, which I know you certainly know is so dangerous. The message it sends to Kim Jong Un, and this whole idea that like he's a communist and you're attacking communists all the time and you're praising him, attacking Democrats for being supposedly communist, but also an authoritarian with nuclear weapons who treats his people even more terribly than Iran, but somehow Iran, no good. Kim Jong Un, great. I know you've written about this and have a lot to say.
Yeah, I've got a piece coming out in Salon over the weekend about this actually, and it's really amazing. I mean, if you want to boil it down to one thing, and it's a very complicated situation, obviously, with both countries, which people have been trying to deal with the idea of quote denuclearization with Iran and with North Korea for decades, and it's been very, very frustrating. But North Korea, I mean, they signed some agreements over the years, one way or another. There was some kind of it was a mutual agreement pact back in the 90s. There were some other things, but essentially they just kept going. They kept, doing what they wanted to do to build up a nuclear arsenal, and they did it. In 2006, it was revealed that they had actually, done an underground test of their first nuclear weapon. And since then, they've built a whole bunch. And not only that, on top of it, they've built a bunch of very powerful ballistic missiles, including intercontinental ballistic missiles, one of which was revealed in October of 2020, just before the election, that it was this gigantic ICBM that North Korea revealed in one of their big parades, and they brought it out and whatever. It had multiple potential nuclear warheads on it that could reach all across the west coast of the United States. And, that was the result of Trump's big, outreach and friendship and bromance, whatever he has with Kim Jong Un, is that they went ahead and built a gigantic ICBM. And we don't know at this point, from what I can tell in my reading, whether or not how many of those they have and whether or not they're actually functional. But the fact is that they're doing it. Meanwhile, Iran over there made a deal with, as we all know, the JCPOA with the Obama administration and the Europeans and various other interested parties, that they would not develop their nuclear program. And it was a reasonably good deal. And I think most people felt like it was working. They had inspectors, they did all that. Trump, of course, having no ability whatsoever to understand any part of foreign policy or national security, came in and immediately tore up the agreement, mainly because it was done by Obama, which that was kind of anything that they did, he did the opposite. Climate agreement, all that stuff. And so the lesson learned here for everybody in the world at this point is get a nuclear weapon, because if you do that, the United States will treat you with deference and respect, and you will have your sovereignty and you will have all kinds of benefits. And if you don't do that, you are subject to what he's doing with Iran. No diplomatic agreement is worth the paper it's printed on, because Donald Trump has made it clear that any U.S. president can come in and unilaterally tear it up. That is the most dangerous, I mean, one of the things that's happened in the whole Trump administration, I think, in both of them, but particularly in this one, is that, they're trying to get rid of all the international institutions, all the things that were built up after World War II as part of the sort of global security arrangement that the United States was, as the big superpower, was pretty much in charge of. We can all quibble with whether or not that was a great idea. America has every right to wonder whether or not that responsibility should be ours, et cetera, et cetera. There are things to be discussed there after all this time. However, the one thing that hasn't changed is that after World War II, the big, huge elephant in the room was nuclear weapons. And not having any kind of institutions, no international agreements, no alliances that could come together to, try and contain this massive threat to the entire planet, tearing those up with nothing to replace it is, it's as dangerous as it was the day after the World War II and we were faced with this. So this is not, you look at it and you say something glib like, well, get yourself a nuclear weapon. I mean, I hate to say it, but that is what's going to happen. And it's going to be tremendously dangerous for everybody.
It also just, completely throws out the window, the idea that we went to Iran to get the nuclear material, to stop them from creating a nuclear bomb, or regime change, right? Creating this great place because the people were treated terribly and he was going to liberate the protesters. I mean, he clearly doesn't care about the people of North Korea, and he obviously doesn't care about the nuclear weapons. I mean, it has been reported over and over that he thought this was going to go quickly. He thought it was going to go like Venezuela. Venezuela is now turning into this place he can use the oil and use that as some sort of payback to the United States. He clearly was after that with Iran as well. He thought this would be a great economic boon, as well as overthrowing the country and creating a new puppet regime.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and of course, that's at the heart of everything that they're doing as far as, quote, diplomacy is concerned. I mean, I wrote a piece this week about Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff and their, their so-called diplomacy. And Jared Kushner and his, he thinks he's the new Henry Kissinger. He's doing shuttle diplomacy now between Hamas and Israel, and et cetera. And it's actually kind of amusing if it weren't so tragic for the people of Gaza. But it's all about that. It's about the idea that they can use some kind of, literally real estate deals. I mean, they're talking about land, and they're talking about literally, and it's in North Korea. He at one point said, back in the first term, that they've got some great beachfront property. You could really do something with that. I mean, this is the way he thinks.
As with Gaza too.
Gaza too. Well, and we've seen, they literally, the quote Board of Peace has these plans to rebuild Gaza into some kind of massive resort. So, I mean, this is what we're dealing with here, is that these are people who just simply see the world in this very, very, transactional is a sort of an abstract concept. And I kind of hate it because it makes it sound like that's a legitimate way to do international diplomacy. And it isn't. Even Kissinger, and I had to do a deep dive back into that hideous, horrible history when I was writing my piece, and realizing that, for all of his faults, and they were many, and he was basically a war criminal, but he had a big strategic, idea. I mean, he came out of academia. He had, this realpolitik that he had sort of developed and believed in. But at least there was something you could understand about it. There was something that you could grab onto. With these people, it's just one transaction after another. Oh, we'll do this deal. Oh, we'll do this deal. There's nothing that connects it. And there's nothing that makes it, in any way predictable or understandable for the rest of the world. It's very pedestrian, I guess. And it doesn't work. I mean, I think that's what's clear. You can see with Russia, Ukraine. That's a perfect example. That is not, that a real estate deal will not solve that problem. There's something much deeper about that. Same thing with Iran. Same thing with Israel. I don't believe that this idea about doing this with Gaza has even the slightest chance in hell of succeeding, because they think that everything can be brought down. It's all about money. It's all about, and it's about exploitation, and not even in the sense that we used to think of as, what they call a colonial, settler colonialism. It's not even that, where at least you could say, well, they want to take over a certain area and they're going to, use it and exploit the people that are there. This is just one thing after another. It's a one-off. Oh, I'm going to build a hotel, I'm going to build a casino or whatever. This is just a very, very inadequate, to say the least, way of doing international relations, and it's causing us lots and lots of problems. I mean, the thing that he said just the other day, I'm going to make the Strait of Hormuz an American territory. What? I mean, what? And he's going to charge tolls. I mean, what is this? What's he talking about? And
this
I don't think,
idea that we're actually resurrecting Henry Kissinger, but the point is, he was a diplomat. He understood diplomacy. Iran has diplomats, professional diplomats. They've studied abroad. They understand diplomacy. He's got, as you said, these guys who just did real estate, and they weren't very good either.
No, it's not like, I mean, they're, well, excuse me, Kushner, he's just a Nepo baby, right? I mean, his father was, some real estate guy, and he got, inherited a bunch of money, and then has done, same thing as Trump. They're the same kind of people. So I don't think, they're not very good. I mean, Trump's one of the only people in the world who ever lost money on casinos. So, he's not somebody that we should be looking to as the great deal maker. And in fact, his whole history of the art of the deal, you get into that and you realize just how, phony that really was. But I mean, this is just not, it's not a way that you can do diplomacy. Well, basically do any kind of international relations, I should say. They don't really believe in diplomacy. It's not about that. I mean, they don't understand that the process of diplomacy it's bigger than just doing a deal. Diplomacy is not only doing a deal. What you want is for it to be win-win on the part of both parties involved, so that they feel that they've got an investment and a stake in the outcome.
Right.
And you want it to be something that establishes a foundation for the future, so that there's stability there. He has no interest. I don't even think he has the remotest understanding.
He didn't even know that. Now, this is all causing a lot of tension, and it's been for a while, but we're now seeing it in the polls among Republicans in the base and among MAGA itself. I mean, we saw a poll this week. Trump's approval among Republicans had dropped from, the usual 90% down to 60-something percent. I mean, that's really bad. And the war has been part of it. And we see, obviously, Marjorie Taylor Greene and others. You wrote about Tucker Carlson and took a deep dive into his now wanting to start a new party and the problems this could cause for Republicans.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And they came out, I mean, you saw the picture, right? I mean, they put out they were at Tucker's house. I thought it looked like some kind of a Viking, ritual there. They had this big antler, chandelier, and he's sitting at this head of the table, like, some kind of a Viking warrior, and the rest of them are sitting around him. And I think it was Thomas Massie, Joe Kent, who was the former, what was he, the counterintelligence or the counterterrorist person that
resigned?
Quit. Yeah, he resigned in protest, and then there was Marjorie Taylor Greene. So these were all people. They're MAGA apostates, the three of them, and they were there with their spouses, and they just sort of put out the picture. I think Marjorie put it out, and she said, the movement has begun or something. And so the idea is, and Tucker came out and said it, that they're actually thinking of starting a third party. He denies that he's running for president, but I don't believe it. I think he actually is. And I've actually always thought that. I wrote about that 2 or 3 years ago. I'm going, watch it. This guy is definitely aiming at the presidency. And he's found this very strange kind of populist, quasi-MAGA, anti-immigrant, pro-Russia, isolationist. I mean, it's a very weird amalgam of various right-wing causes. But it's potent because, the MAGA is incoherent. I mean, it always has been. Right. So they don't have to be coherent to have a third party there. But it could cause some real trouble because I think that as you see this 60-some% now of Republicans are approving of Trump, there's a desire, I think, among Republicans to kind of move away from him. And, within 10 years, most of them will say they never voted for him. It'll be that kind of thing. But right now they're in this weird, they don't want to admit that they made a mistake. They don't want to, sort of decide that they're going to become Democrats. And so there's got to be some kind of transition, a bridge away from the Republican MAGA, movement and party. And this is one way that they could do it. And it's one way that we could see the Republicans have to face what Democrats have had to face for so many years, where you've got a third party over there, on your shoulder with kind of the more extreme, or, maybe more strictly ideological, which again, in terms of MAGA, is just strictly incoherent. But nonetheless, it's some other party there where people can go and park themselves out of frustration with the party itself. This could be a big thing, I think. I mean, even if Tucker Carlson and his, his vice president, Marjorie Taylor Greene, were to only take, 5%.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Their own Ralph Nader situation.
Exactly. Well, exactly. That's exactly what happened to the Democrats, and that they've been doing. Not that it couldn't happen to the Democrats again as well, but for the moment, we're looking at, and so it kind of is. I think that the Republicans should be a little worried about this. Tucker Carlson is a very strange character in American politics. I mean, he's been everywhere, and he got fired from every job he ever had working in media. But he's maintained, especially in recent years, this position as kind of he's more MAGA than MAGA, or some kind of special place where he alone has the nerve to kind of say the things that the real MAGA wants to say.
He's connecting with what is the molten core of MAGA, which is actually still burning and growing, and that's the Nick Fuentes crowd, the white supremacists. Yep. I mean, as all of the others are losing their followers, Megyn Kelly and the rest of them, Fuentes is exploding. I mean, that's new MAGA, or the molten core that's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, and like, TPUSA, which is in crisis, they're going, you've got this sort of fringe out there, Fuentes, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. These are people who have real power in that, in that sort of discrete, part of the MAGA movement. And you're right, it's growing, and it's intense. It's growing in intensity, while the regular sort of Republicans are kind of floundering around. It's very interesting, and I'm sure that the Republicans are concerned about it. They're not saying much about it, probably wisely so. But we'll see how this develops. But I think it's a very interesting thing, because it's dangerous as hell. I mean, these people are nuts. The last thing you want is for them to actually gain power in the party the way that Donald Trump and MAGA have gained power, because it's like MAGA, it's like Trump times 10. I mean, it's not good. Let's just put it that way.
Now, something else that happened this week that exposed the White House really very worried about this relationship that Donald Trump has with Natalie Harp, his executive assistant. Of course, Senator John Ossoff, those famous 3 words, travel with Natalie. It just went viral. The White House melted down, at least the White House communications people and the aides, with just attacks on Ossoff. They didn't even defend Natalie Harp, which just betrayed what this was about. And the Republicans tried to portray it as he's going after her, and it's this poor defenseless aide, and this is sexual innuendo, which in a way they were willing to accept that people think that's what it was, because that's like more normal. That's where we are now, right? That would be more normal and fit with Donald Trump, but it's not that. This is a woman who's like a security blanket and a sycophant, and these letters that have now come out that she sent to him are just crazy stuff. I mean, she is like a stalker who actually got inside, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's the issue. Clearly, there has been some serious leakage here about Natalie Harp. These people in the White House. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Susie Wiles herself or somebody like that leaked this stuff, because they want her out. They want her gone. I really think they do. She's nothing but trouble for them, because she feeds his ego with this craziest stuff that's out there in the on the internet and on social media. And she tells him everything that he wants to hear. She protects him. And she's also potentially someone that if people can get to her, that they can find very specific influence with the president by going through Natalie Harp. She's very powerful. That's one of the reasons why they're shrieking about her. Oh, the poor innocent little child there. How dare you? Well, she's in a very powerful position, and of course she's fair game for anybody to say anything about. Now, what they did was just what I call a patented right-wing hissy fit. And I wrote a big piece about that many years ago called The Art of the Hissy Fit. And what they do is they create these outrage fests and then make the Democrats, generally speaking, then end up kind of crawling around going, well, we're sorry. It happened all the time. My first example that I always come to is the Wellstone funeral, right? Where they make a big thing out of something ridiculous. And the Democrats are, oh, we're so sorry. And, we really didn't mean it that way.
Many years ago.
Yeah. I mean, and there were many examples of that during the Obama administration. They would do these things. And the Democrats would bend over backwards to say that they didn't mean it that way. And that wasn't it, whatever. Well, interestingly, I mean, there were a few who did that this time. David Axelrod kind of famously came out and said, well, Ossoff probably went too far. It was gratuitous or something. For the most part, the Democrats kept themselves together and did not do that. And they went ahead and said, no, sorry, this is a real story and we have every right to bring it up. And they defended Ossoff. Ossoff didn't say anything wrong. All he said was travel with Natalie. He didn't make any innuendo. And by the way, the innuendo that everybody's saying that he made, Trump kind of likes that, I think. He's 80 years old, so, hey, man, I got a 35-year-old, piece on the side over here, so yeah, I've still got it. The truth is that she acts more like a caregiver to the 80-year-old man, and she's there to kind of help him. There's been all kinds of rumors about that too, that she takes care of his personal needs, not sexual, but otherwise. So, this whole idea of this, I think that the White House really made a mistake. I mean, they made a mistake because rather than evoking the hissy fit, which they thought they could get, and Democrats backing off, instead they just shone a light on this weird relationship.
Streisand effect times 1,000.
Yes, exactly. Right? Streisand effect times 1,000. And it is so weird. I mean, those letters, I think they were just published yesterday by Daily Beast. I think that Michael Wolff had them. Where does he get this stuff? I don't know who he's got on the. Maybe it's Melania. I mean, I don't know, but something. But when you read the letters in full, we'd read passages of them, right? The quotable stuff. But when you read the whole thing, I mean, this is some twisted stuff. I mean, who is this person and what is going on with her?
I am so sorry if I upset you when I walked on the lawn of the golf course. I'm sorry if I acted this way. I really just
go ahead and cuss me out when I need it.
Right? And he doesn't read those whole letters.
No, of course. I mean, he doesn't read anything.
And then you mentioned Melania. They brought her out now too. That seemed to be like the emergency switch, right?
It was. Did you miss me? I mean, I heard you missed me. Well, I'm back. It's kind of. And there's a picture of them walking down the colonnade there with.
Good afternoon. I heard you missed me. Here I am. Welcome.
Here I am. Yeah. And Trump was sitting in the front row and he didn't even say anything at this event. He just kind of sat there looking up, and I do think that there's an aspect of this that, they say this and, you find it hard to believe because Trump is such a bullying creep, but he does worry about Melania getting upset about something like this. He does worry about it, I think. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the rumors of some kind of a sexual thing between them would upset her, but I don't think she probably didn't like it. Let's just put it that way. That suddenly there was all this attention being paid to this young woman who's traveling around it just like some kind of a weird slave. I mean, it's weird.
Right. Bizarre. And because she had kind of been in hiding. And it's kind of going back to the White House Correspondents' Dinner and, that horrible situation of a gunman and she's hiding under a table. And I think she just wanted to check out, but something or someone said, you got to show up now.
Yeah. We need you. And then we've got to get the picture of them holding hands and walking down showing that they're happy together. The whole thing is just, I think that the big problem with it really is the age problem with Trump. He's really showing his age now. He's showing that he's not really together. And here he has this young person, this young woman, obviously religiously devoted to him, who is following him around, and kind of, I think people worry now, and you can kind of see it with with Republicans, but also I think maybe with the public at large. That's just strange. Why does he need this person? Why does he need her to be
Right.
with him all the time? What's going on there? You know?
Yeah.
And if
It's,
we had, if the media were as hard on Trump over his age issues as they were on Biden,
oh,
I think that would be more explicit in the commentary about this whole thing.
absolutely. Now, you zeroed in on something else really important that's been playing out with RFK Jr. And Trump together, the vaccine schedule, the changing of the vaccine schedule for children, this measles outbreak that is the greatest outbreak we've seen. It topped the record, which was last year, since we had supposedly eradicated measles, and just what this means as we see them putting other people in places now at the CDC, at the FDA, who are also vaccine deniers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so worried about this. I'm really, really worried about this, because these people, you know, they have a tremendous influence, and it goes beyond just the internet, you know, stuff, the anti-vax movement. Now you're finding that in across, you know, many, many states, you're having huge numbers of kindergartners now. Their parents are taking exemptions and saying that they, you know, that they're not doing the vaccines, I guess, on religious grounds or whatever the state allows them to do. So the herd immunity that has existed for most of these childhood diseases, it doesn't take that much for it to break down. It really doesn't. And they're doing this with the, you know, imprimatur of the US government and the public health, you know, the CDC, the head, RFK Jr. is the head of HHS, coming out there and basically saying this. Now, RFK gives lip service to saying parents should get the measles vaccine. Now, he says this, gives this sort of perfunctory thing. But it's clear that this movement, this anti-vax movement, which in fairness, it, you know, had many of its origins on the left in the wellness community and that sort of thing. I knew people here in California. I'm kind of in the center of it here in California where I live. And there were plenty of, you know, liberals who, out of, you know, sort of cynicism toward the pharmaceutical companies and what have you, also, you know, were involved in this anti-vax movement. But it's really taking off. And when you see the kind of anti-science and it's just science denialism in general, which we've seen how it affects people's understanding of climate change, you know, that was financed heavily by the fossil fuel industry, which put a lot of money and a lot of time into convincing people that climate science and climate change is, you know, if not a hoax, at least not, you know, in any way the kind of danger that people should be worried about. And, you know, this has been going on forever. This goes back, you know, my piece there that you showed the headline from Galileo to RFK Jr. But it is true that religion has also had a tremendous influence on science denialism forever, you know, from going back to the beginning. And including, you know, when fundamentalism, you know, there was actually a book that was written back in the 1920s and financed by a couple of oil magnates from here in Los Angeles. Called The Fundamentals, which gave the name to fundamentalism. And it was about denying science, evolution specifically, but plenty of other things too. So, you know, there's some powerful, powerful forces in our country that have been out there for a long time, you know, that promote science denialism. And in the case of this, you know, here we are again, we talked about the nuclear threat earlier. Well, we've just been through a big pandemic. Was just kind of really a shot across the bow of how bad and dangerous that whole thing can be. And we had a tremendous advance that happened very quickly, and partially thanks to Donald Trump, of all people, who was president at the time. They created this vaccine very quickly with a new technology that is hugely promising for all kinds of diseases, including cancer. And in fact, just this week, they had a big, you know, announcement that there's very promising, you know, trials on the mRNA technology for melanoma.
That's right.
And, you know, and earlier for pancreatic cancer. I mean, this is a very, very exciting and promising new technology. And these people in the anti-vax movement are dead set against mRNA
Right.
technology, and they are working hard to make sure that the government does not fund any of this. They almost made Moderna go bankrupt because
and of course with the children to loosen the regulations over vaccines in schools. And to your point about California and this beginning there, California responded by actually strengthening laws, right? Passing more laws, making exemptions for children much harder to get. And California now has one of the highest vaccination rates. So what we're seeing across the country are because these states have weakened their laws over, getting vaccines, making sure that, that people can not get exemptions so easily, and that's what's causing it. So laws do work, public health does work, getting federal government's guidance does work as well.
Absolutely. And we've seen that, I mean, for at least 60, 70 years, we've seen just such tremendous success with vaccines. People my age were probably the last of the people who did not have the vaccines, and that a lot of us got those childhood diseases. I did. I had a bunch. I had measles. I even had rubella when I was a kid. And, so, I mean, this is not something you want children to get. It's the idea. RFK Jr. said, well, because I think he's somewhere around my age. He said, well, when we were kids at Hickory Hill, we all got it, and we all just got off school and we all hung out together. Well, isn't that nice? Except for the kids who didn't, who got very, very sick. Some died. In fact, there's a great essay by Roald Dahl, the writer, whose daughter died from measles. Surprisingly out of the blue. They didn't expect it, but she did. It used to happen a lot. And the idea that you would let this happen for no reason, and that the government would get behind it. And you've got Donald Trump out there saying that everything causes autism, and he's changing the vaccine requirements. He wants to personally giving recommendations that parents should not get their kids vaccinated with the MMR vaccine, which is hilarious. The hilarious part in that press conference, I don't know if you saw it, but he said that he had personally taken all of his kids to the pediatrician and made the doctor break up the vaccines so that they didn't get them. Yeah, I know that happened. That happened for sure.
God. Heather, this has been such a great conversation, and we covered so much, and it went so quickly.
So much fun. It's
always great speaking with you. I really want to thank you. Heather Parton is at salon.com, where you can read all her work. Also, digbysblog.net is her site. I want to thank Lincoln Square for hosting us and this collaboration. I want to tell all of my subscribers and followers, make sure you subscribe to Lincoln Square Media. Great stuff, great news, powerful interviews as well. And thanks everybody for watching and being a part of this.
Thanks for having me.